Hey guys, no video for our crime and emergency services in Japan playlist. On a couple of videos over the years, we've showed you some really slow moving ambulances that are actually on their way to jobs rather than on their way to hospital, being careful of someone in the back. I actually had an experience last week where we were at a place actually looking for trees. Some of you would know that's an inside joke. And returned to the car, and there was a lady lying on the ground. And the story turned out that she was 84 years old and her husband was with her. And he didn't really know. She'd got out of the passenger side and ended up on the ground, and we weren't sure if she got knocked by a car or if she just fainted or fallen down or something. But she was bleeding from the head, and the husband was sort of dabbing at her head with tissues, and it was she was lying on the bitumen in the car park, and it was all a bit of a scene. So I just grabbed a towel out of the car and a big hat and put the towel under her head and put the hat above her to sort of shield her from the sun. And someone else said they'd called an ambulance. So we sort of just kept an eye on her, talked to her and reassured her and just sort of waited for the ambulance to come. And it took forever. And we know where it was coming from. And if we wanted to drive that drive quickly, we could probably drive from where the ambulance station is to where we were in probably 3 minutes, 4 minutes, if we really went for it, if we didn't have to worry about the speed limits and things. But these guys just drive so carefully and so slowly. They do go through red lights, as you would have noticed, but really slowly and really slowly. And quite often, we've actually had cases where we've been on a highway and they're sticking to the limit and nobody else is. And so the ambulance is cruising along with its siren blaring and its lights flashing and cars are overtaking it. So obviously it must be their policy that they just go slow, but it was forever. And we've always sort of laughed at it about how slow the ambulances are. But in this case, it just wasn't funny. You know, the lady was obviously distressed. We were worried. She's 84 years old. We were worried that she was going to stop breathing or something. She was conscious and talking to us, but we were just worried something's going to happen. And it took forever, probably 15 minutes, something like that. It was ridiculous. It really was. And it's scary because we've heard stories like that before from people about waiting a long time for an ambulance when they really needed one. And it's a scary thought that something bad happened to you and you have to wait for these guys to finally turn up. So anyway, there was that. So, I mean, you could see what was going on here. These guys just cruising along really slowly. And the reason we caught them is that there was a train crossing. Not much they can do about that, of course. But you can see, can't you, just the crawling along. Oh, incidentally, when they turned up, they didn't check her over. They got this big bag with handles out of the back of the ambulance, came up, basically picked her up straight away onto this big bag thing and put her in the ambulance. They didn't ask any questions about what injuries she might have or how she ended up on the ground or anything. So I was assuming that she could have had neck injury, so I was being really careful. And they just sort of picked her up, put her on this big bag with handles, and then picked that up and put her on the stretcher and put her in the back of the ambulance without asking any questions or checking her over or anything first. It wasn't until they got her onto the stretcher they noticed she had blood from the back of her head. So that was a bit disturbing too. So yeah, that wasn't a good experience, you might have noticed. Anyway, so have another listen with the volume turned up. Here we go.
およそ 2km 先左方向です。
Anyway, there it was. More videos coming soon.